Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today's video might not come as much of a surprise to many of you, because today we're going to be looking at the new track from Fear Factory. Now I'll be honest, I haven't listened to Fear Factory in a very long time, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, there may be some people out there who don't know who Fear Factory are. I'd be very surprised if there is any. But anyway, information about the band. Fear Factory is an American heavy metal band formed in Los Angeles, California in 1989. So they have been around for quite some time. Throughout the band's career, they have released they've released 9, should I say, full-length albums, and have evolved through a succession of sounds, all in their main style of groove and industrial. You know, so the sound of the band has sort of evolved quite considerably over the years. Fear Factory was enormously influential in the heavy metal scene in the mid to late 1990s. Over the years, the band has seen many changes in its lineup, with lead vocalist Burton C. Bell being the only consistent member for 31 years until his departure in 2020, along with guitarist Dino Cazares. In other words, Dino Cazares and Burton C. Bell are the two longest running members of the band, but Burton C. Bell left recently. That was worded awfully in this write-up that I've got here. Anyway. But now, of course, Burton C. Bell having left, Dino Cazares is the only original member of the band. The band went on hold in 2002 following some internal disputes, but resumed activity a year later without founding member Dino Cazares. So he did take some time out of the band very briefly. Previous bassist Christian Olde-Wolbers, possibly one of my favourite names of all time, replaced him as the new guitarist, and bassist Byron Stroud joined the band. In April 2009, a new lineup was announced. Cazares returned as a guitarist, and Gene Hoglan as the drummer. Bell and Stroud reprised their respective roles, and the lineup recorded the band's 7th album, Mechanize, in 2010. Former member Christian Olde-Wolbers and Raymond Herrera, both of whom were playing in Archaea, disputed the legitimacy of the new lineup, and a legal battle from both parties had begun. Despite this, Fear Factory has since released 2 more albums, The Industrialist and Genexus, and of course they have their new upcoming album, Aggression Continuum. I'm not sure, I don't think that's actually out yet, but it's coming soon, I believe. So yeah, with Fear Factory, it's an unusual one for me. I haven't listened to them in a very long time. In fact, I've not actually heard any material of theirs since Digimortal, and that's 2001. The last Fear Factory album I actually bought was Obsolete, which was 1998. So I've not actually heard anything from Archetype, Transgression, Mechanize, The Industrialist, Genexus, and I've not even heard this new track. So we'll jump into this track and we'll discuss it a bit more afterwards. I do have lyrics here. They came from directly underneath the video. Now, as I understand it, Burton C. Bell left after this album was completed, so it's still Burton C. Bell on vocals in this track, as I understand it. There's little things flying around. So we're still getting Burton C. Bell era Fear Factory, but I have no idea what this is going to sound like, because like I said, last time I listened to Fear Factory was back in like 1998, 2000, so it's been a very long time. So we'll see what we've got. So we've got Disruptor by Fear Factory. Let's have a look. Disruptor! Propaganda, propaganda, a predator. well, there we go. That was Disruptor by Fear Factory, and I can honestly say, having not listened to them in something close to 20 years, not having heard any new material from them in close to 20 years, not much has changed. I mean, they say that their sound has evolved and, changed over the years. I honestly can't tell that much of a difference from back in the days of Obsolete and Demanufacture. Burton C. Bell's vocal style in this track is ever so slightly different. He's still got that harsh, aggressive tone. His clean vocals, however, are very different. And that's actually a little bit disappointing, because his clean vocal style back in the era of Obsolete and Demanufacture, he had a fantastic voice. But here, his clean vocals, not only do they sound a lot quieter, they also sound digitally enhanced or digitally altered, and they don't sound nearly as good, which is quite disappointing, because I used to think his clean vocals were fantastic, because he had a very specific tone to his voice which just sounded gorgeous. But here, his clean vocals are just But like I said, the song is, it's good, but it's nothing to get excited about. Like I said, I haven't listened to anything new from Fear Factory since Digimortal came out, and let's face it, Digimortal wasn't particularly a great album. I can't see this progression, this evolution of their sound that they've been talking about. To me, anybody could have played that to me. I would have instantly been able to tell you exactly who that band is, because they sound just the same to me. That I can't see any evolution in sound. So, I don't think I've really missed out on anything, not having listened to them, listened to anything new for the last 20 years, because, But like I said, it's not a bad track. But the reason, I'll step into the reason here, but with Fear Factory. Back in 1998, 2000, Fear Factory were huge. This was, 2-3 albums after they'd sort of really exploded, because I think Soul of a New Machine was the first album. And I don't actually know that album. I don't think I've ever actually heard it. I might have, because I know my older brother was quite into Fear Factory at that time. But then they sort of exploded with like Demanufacture, and Obsolete was a massive, massive album at the time. And I believe I've only actually got Demanufacture, Obsolete, Digimortal. I think I've got Remanufacture 2, which was the remix of Demanufacture, which is awful. But they were one of those bands where everybody was like raving and hyping about how great they were, and I was sort of like, well, yeah, they're okay. I was just never that enthusiastic about the band. They did have a great, and at the time they had a fairly unique sound. But they were a sort of band that I could listen to them, but I kind of got bored with them very, very quickly. That there was nothing exceptional about them to me. But I do still listen to Obsolete. In fact, I listened to Obsolete fairly recently. But I've never really gotten excited about the band. Edge Crusher used to be like one of those tracks that everybody put on like their driving set list or their workout set list. That was a huge song when that came out. And it's one of those songs I still know word for word. But I just never got excited about this band. And, with this new track, I thought, I'll give it a listen, see how they've evolved over the years, and just nothing. They're no different, except for a very slight change in Burton C. Bell's vocal style, and not for the better. But of course, now he's left. I don't know if the band are actually going to continue, or who they're going to get to replace him, and how that's going to affect the sound of the band. So that's something to keep an eye on in the future. Now, the actual song. Now that I've gotten that all out of the way, as you can tell by the video, set in a dystopian future, which is the sort of thing we've come to expect from Fear Factory. They seem to a lot of their material seems to be based around a dystopian future. I mean, they're industrial metal, which kind of goes hand in hand with post-apocalypse, that sort of thing. And the song itself, Disruptor, seems to be talking about, not so much fighting against the man, but, saying, these people that rule the country, you're no better than me. That's what it seems to be talking about. And the song goes, I refuse to pledge allegiance, a ceremony of deception, psycho-sickness, propaganda, the predator to the prey. I refuse. I refuse. I refuse society. I refuse loyalty. So, straight from the get-go, he's like, I refuse to pledge allegiance. I'm not going to bow down to the corruption of these people that are trying to run the world, when all they really want to do is make themselves richer and sacrifice us, the normal people, for their own personal gain. I refuse society. I refuse loyalty. It's like, I'm not going to fall in line with you. You can threaten me as much as you like, but I'm not going to fall in line with you just because you shout louder than I do. I'm just going to shout back. I'm not going along with your rubbish just to make you richer, because you're just stamping on the little man. And then he came in with the clean vocals, and it says, no regrets, follow your own way. I can't talk today. Nothing can define you, break off, disobey. I am the disruptor. I am the disruptor. I resist the powers that be, anonymous truth seeker, a nation incarcerated to be enslaved by corporate. And that, again, they're very concise with what they're saying, very precise. There's no messing around, there's no bull. They are straight to the point. I resist the powers that be, a nation incarcerated to be enslaved by corporate. So I resist the powers that be. I'm not going to fall into line just because you're telling me to. I'm going to actually fight against the corruption. I'm not just going to go, okay, that's just the way it is. I'm going to actually do something about this. A nation incarcerated, certain countries have had really, really bad political administrations in the last 4 years. And they've basically been held hostage by this dictator who's doing nothing but serving his own personal agenda. He doesn't care about the people that he sees as below him. So he's just running the country into the ground the way he wants to, spreading fear and lies and utter bullshit, and holding the nation's people hostage. And it says to be enslaved by corporate, because corporations, these 1%ers that are making themselves richer and richer and richer as the people they're supposed to be caring for, the people they claim to be trying to help, are actually suffering more and more and more, because these people at the top, they don't care. They're just interested in lining their pockets. And it carries on. I resist powers that be. I resist consciously. No regrets, follow your own way. Nothing can define you, break off, disobey. No regrets, follow your own way. Nothing can define you, break off, disobey. You are not the privileged. You are not better than me. Your control, my blasphemy. And those 3 lines, perfect. You are not the privileged. You are not better than me. You're a human just as I am. Nothing makes you better than me. You are not special. It doesn't matter if you're the president, the prime minister, the king, what have you. You're not better than me. You're in a position of power, yes, but that doesn't make you better than me. In fact, most people in positions of power are the most corrupt, self-serving, pathetic, childish asshats you could ever come across. And, you know, they don't care about anybody but themselves. They are not better than you. In fact, they're probably worse than you. You know, your control is my blasphemy. You're trying to control people, and to me, it's disgusting. It's, you know, you're trying to control us to fit your own ends rather than us. Rather than us turning to you for help, you're using us to to help yourself. It's disgusting. And then it carries on. No regrets, follow your own way. Nothing can define you, break off, disobey. No regrets, follow your own way. Nothing can define you, break off, disobey, break off. And then right at the end, they sort of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. They sort of interleave lines, like they do one harsh, one clean, one harsh, one clean. It goes, I am the disruptor, disobey. I am the disruptor, follow your. I am the disruptor, own way. I am the disruptor. And that's it. So, calling himself the disruptor, he's the one who wants to upset the system. He wants to challenge the system that's, supposed to be helping them, but is actually using them. He's not going to stand for this rubbish anymore. He's going to stand up. He's going to fight. He's going to, fight against this corruption of the world and the government. And this, again, it's a common theme that I've heard throughout Fear Factory's music. I say throughout Fear Factory's music, through the 3 albums of theirs that I've actually heard. The government does seem to come into it quite a lot, and it's also a very common topic in music at the moment. And it's not surprising given what's happened in certain countries over the last 4 or 5 years. Thankfully, those sorts of things have changed for the better since then. But, it's a very common theme at the moment, this sort of dystopian future, this fighting against corruption, wanting to knock these 1%ers down to their, knock them down to ground, sort of bring them back to our level so they can realise, just what a sad and pathetic human being these people actually are. So, the song has got a great meaning to it. And, like I said, it is a decent song. It is a pretty good song. But there's nothing spectacular about it. There's nothing that makes me go, yes, this is a great piece of music. It's just, it's Fear Factory. And that's it. There's nothing that makes me excited about this piece of music. It's pretty decent. I could quite happily listen to it. Chances are I will get this album. But that's it. I don't find anything exciting about this. I'm sure people are absolutely raving for this. People who are actually big fans of Fear Factory. I like Fear Factory, but I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. And I'm sure there are people out there that are really, really excited for this, and I am interested to see, to hear the new album, to see if the rest of the album is different, to see if there's an overall change to the band dynamic, to the sound of the band. This track could just be an outlier. This could be this one sounds like old Fear Factory, but the rest of the album sounds different. It might have a different sort of tone to it. It might have a different style in some places, but for the most part, this track is just Fear Factory. That's it. Nothing exciting. And considering that their last album was 2015, I think it is, so it's been 6 years since they last released an album, and that they're pushing forward, saying, we've evolved, we've changed, over the years, our sound has changed and evolved. To me, I can't really tell that much of a difference, except in Burton C. Bell's vocal style, and that's it. But anyway, can't think of much else to say about that, so I'll leave that as it is. If anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so. By all means, you can drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would, of course, be a massive help to me, to help to support this channel. I can finally try and do something about this backdrop, which I'm slowly trying to, upgrade, but, I don't, I can't afford to. and maybe improve the equipment, because people have said that my microphone is terrible, and I need a better one, but I can't afford a better one. So, if you want to help support the channel, that would be absolutely fantastic, because of course I make nothing from any of my videos. They all get immediately demonetized the moment they're uploaded, because I'm using another artist's material within my videos. They all get demonetized and I make absolutely nothing, which is a little bit frustrating, because I can understand that they get they get their fair share. I'm using their material, so it's only fair that they get the recognition and whatnot for it. That's fair enough, but they're getting everything. I get absolutely nothing. Despite all the work and effort that I put into these videos and the parts that don't actually involve them, doesn't matter. They get everything. So it's a little bit frustrating. So, any help would be hugely appreciated, and I can hopefully improve this channel. There is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue, if you should so wish it. It's a limit on how frequently you can do that, which is once a month, and that's just to be fair to people who suggest tracks through more regular means like Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram comments. And if you do suggest a track through those more regular means, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, do know it could take me a while to get around to your suggestions, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list of tracks grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it should get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get around to it. Also, MetalHead React is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose goal is to put an end to hate crimes, and one of the main facets of that is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture. And that is something I believe in very, very strongly, and something that really needs more attention bringing to it. And unfortunately, it's something that gets widely ignored and brushed under the carpet. Because every day, we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism, etc. We hear these every single day. From the most violent of these crimes, where someone is brutally murdered because of the colour of their skin, their religious beliefs, or their sexual orientation, down to the most petty of these crimes, where some entitled white woman is calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic, or because a man of colour is walking down the street and they don't like that. We hear every facet of these crimes on a daily basis in every media outlet possible, whether it's printed media, digital media, or audiovisual. We hear these every single day. But we never hear anything about these people from the alternative culture that are getting brutally and viciously attacked just because of the music that they listen to. And we're not just talking about like insults being shouted at them from across the street, or getting shoulder bumped as they're walking down the road. No, we're talking about real brutal, violent crimes where people are getting hospitalized with broken limbs and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries, just purely for the fact that they listen to alternative music. In fact, the last time there was widespread media coverage on this subject was about 14 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently and brutally attacked by a group of 4 or 5 people. Or was it 5 or 6? Anyway, they were attacked by a group of people, beaten, kicked, punched, and knocked to the ground, and they had their heads stamped on so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive this attack. He was in a coma for around about a week and a half. Might have been longer than that, I can't remember exactly how long, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, she was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This young woman was 20 years old and she was beaten to death just because this group of people didn't like the fact that she listened to alternative music and wore alternative clothing. Now, at the time, this was all over the news, as rightfully it should have been. But of course, over time, as all things do, other news stories came in and this sort of disappeared. But the thing is, in the 14 years since that's happened, we've not had any other reports across the news media of things like this happening. But I know for a fact there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar cases to this since that's happened, and we've not heard anything. Just a couple of years ago, there was a young woman in Scotland, not far from where I live. and she was running a charity gig. At one point during the evening, she had to go back to her home, which was a 5-minute walk away from the venue that she was hosting. In the time between leaving the venue and her home, she was attacked twice by another group of 5 or 6 people. And this group attacked her twice in the space of time between leaving the venue and getting to her home. In a 5-minute walk, she was attacked twice by this group of people who beat her, punched her, kicked her, knocked her to the ground, and beat her brutally. Now, thankfully, a passing taxi driver put an end to this attack, although he didn't stop to see if she was okay. He scared off this group of thugs. They ran off as the cowards they are. And he carried on about his way. Didn't check to see if she was okay. She didn't get help until she got back to the venue to where her friends were. This was not in the news. Like I said, I could walk to Scotland from where I live, and I didn't hear a thing about this in the news. It wasn't in the newspapers, it wasn't on the TV. I didn't hear about this until a friend told me about it. And the only reason he knew about it was because the person who was attacked was his friend. Why wasn't this in the news? I mean, if that taxi driver hadn't passed at that time, who's to say that this young woman would not have ended up in the same situation as Sophie Lancaster? Who's to say this young woman would not have been beaten to death just like Sophie Lancaster? Then it would have been in the news. That's unacceptable. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before this sort of thing gets spoken about. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to die before something gets done. We hear about all these other hate crimes, even the petty little things, like entitled white women calling the police because of some imagined slight. We hear about these, and yes, they are bad things to happen. But when something like that takes priority over a single young woman being brutally and violently beaten by a gang of people to near unconsciousness, there is something incredibly wrong here. This sort of thing needs to stop. And, people just sort of brush it aside. They don't care. They ignore it because it doesn't have anything to do with them. But that's not acceptable. What if it was a member of your own family that was brutally beaten for nothing other than the reason they listened to different music? You would be furious. You would be enraged. You'd be screaming out for justice. You'd be calling the police every 5-10 minutes trying to get them to actually do something. So why should it be no different for this young woman? Why should it be no different for anybody else from the alternative community who has been brutally and violently attacked in a similar fashion? But no, we just keep ignoring it. And by ignoring it, we're letting these people think that they can continue and get away with it. And that has to stop. Because if we keep ignoring it, it's only a matter of time before somebody else loses their life. And we can't allow that. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is going on and the fact that we need to bring more recognition to it to stop this from happening again. Because they don't want to see another family go through what they went through when they had to watch their child slowly die over the course of 2 weeks because of the small-minded actions of a group of people who couldn't handle the fact that not everybody likes the same stuff. We can't carry on down this route. It needs to stop. Why people feel the need to violently attack someone for having a difference of opinion is beyond my comprehension. It makes no sense to me. But it happens, and it needs to stop. If you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is, because they can explain it a lot better than I can. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it be a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands, or maybe even that one, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff over there as well. But the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we bring more attention to this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.